I think one of the best kept secrets of the combined operations in the Second World War, more so the role of Odisha. Out of these 5 planes, 2 of them collided with each other. I could trace the descendants and the family members of all the 13. Assistant Mathai was just non-traceable. The plan B, there's always a plan B. Yeah. If that would have not happened, the next flight which would have gone to bomb Hiroshima would have taken off from Amarda Road. Even today when we go there, in the night we get lost. Here's some very intriguing tales about Amarda Road airstrip of Odisha. So today we'll come to know what the story is all about. So Anil bhai. The Amarda Road airstrip. I think one of the best kept secrets of the combined operations in the Second World War, more so the role of Odisha. Generally, it is presumed that, the Second World War, Odisha didn't have much of a role, in as much as sending soldiers and all. Of course, we know that the INA under Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose had a sizable contingent of Orias who were there in the Azad Hind force. But once again, even then, the relevance, they are forgetting chapters of history. I'll come to the Amarda Road. The Amarda Road Air Base, how I came to know of it. I was researching, I was doing a small work for the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. They have around 14 cemeteries all over India. I was working in the northeast. In the Imphal CWGC cemetery, when I had gone, that time they had a cemetery register in place. There was a big register where details were kept. Now, of course, it is all online, touch screen and all. But those days, it was kept under lock and key in the entrance. And when I was going through, I found references of 14 graves, Amarda Road. I know it's a small non-descriptive railway station which comes en route to Calcutta. It's a railway station, Amarda Road, as you can probably know. Amarda is a small village nearby. So one thing led to the other, and it was mentioned in the register that 14 people had died in an air crash in 1945. When I came and scoured the records, the newspapers of that period, archival material, there was no trace. Absolutely nowhere could I find anything about any crash. End of World War II. World War II. It was one of the last days of the World War II. So one thing led to the other, I being a curious person. When I started probing, I got details of, yes, there used to be a secret airbase. It was one of the longest airfields in the entire Asia at that time, nearly 3.5 kilometers long. It was a secret airbase of the Liberators. There was a joint operations between the American and British Air Force, who were operating Liberators there. Basically, it was a training center. They call it AFTU. A very big secret where the Raja was, had given the land thickly inside a forest, Adivasi area, Santals. And nobody knew much about it, not much had been written because, like I said, it was a secret base. Basically, the base had the largest plane of the air of the Second World War, the Liberators, B-52 Liberators. B-52 bombers, yeah. Leap online. They're called the nuclear fuel, yeah. And so, this base was basically trading. So when one thing led to the other, I did a lot of research. Basically, I couldn't get much in India, but I did a lot of research with the Royal Air Force Archives and the US Air Force Archives, I did come to know, I pieced together a story. The story runs as follows. A secret airbase, which had about 15 Liberators. I think it was the largest concentration of Liberators anywhere during in any single airbase in the entire World War II. It had been set up keeping in mind or forcing a Japanese onslaught, which was on the way. In the pincer movement, they were anticipating they would enter through Burma and then do it. So there was the front line. There were many in Chabua, in Purulia, in Jharsuguda. All these airfields were built purely with the intention that to curb that thing and combat if and when they would have come. They were the first line of airfield which were built. And all of them were heavily fortified and sort of thing. So this was one of the airfields, and later on they used to train the bombers here. Now it had a history already of a year and a half before that. From 42, the air works had started, and 45, it was a full-fledged airbase. Even fighters were there, Spitfires were there, other planes were also there. There were barracks. Mostly 90% of the personnel there were British, American, mixed. There were Dutch, there were English, there were Canadians, there were New Zealanders, there were Australians. It was a mixed, from all the different flying squadrons. They used to come there for training. What happened was, what I came to, yes, there had been a crash, a very fatal crash. On 26 June at around 11 a.m., close formation of 5 bombers took up, for close formation flight. It was a practice, a training mission, which had between all those planes, there were nearly 38 people. Okay. And I have the call sign numbers of all the 5 planes which they had taken up and all, So they were doing close formation flying and dummy runs for bomb dropping. It was a cyclonic weather. The bay there was a depression in the bay. Weather was very bad, cloudy, low-lying, with buffeting winds, as reported by the pilots, which was mentioned in the logbooks and the control center. Somewhere around 20 kilometers as the crow flies, straight line from the airbase, and by road around 40 kilometers in a place called Belda, which still exists. It is near Danton. After Amarda Road, the next station is Danton and the next station is Belda.
Now part of West Bengal.
Now part of West Bengal. So sometime at around 11:45, out of these 5 planes, 2 of them collided with each other. The last photograph of these 5 planes flying in formation just a few minutes before the crash happened is also there. There was another fighter which had photographed them. 2 of the planes crashed against each other, went into a spiral, dropped on the ground. It was a low-level flight. They dropped to the ground and burst into flames, as seen by the other 3 planes who hovered overhead. They hovered overhead for some time and they saw that there was a fire and they knew the chances of survival were very less. So they flew back to base and a search and rescue mission was set up. Like I told you, it was cyclonic weather and it was a very flood-prone area. There were a lot of small and big rivers. And the Suvarna Rekha was there. It was in spate. So in spite of it being just a few kilometers away, for 4 days the search parties couldn't reach it. They would go whole day and then it would come back disappointed. On the 5th day, they took the army trucks and all by tying together boats, crossed the river and reached the crash site. When they reached the crash site, there were a 30-member delegation, including doctors and pastors and the police. They went to the spot where the plane had fallen and the wreckage was there. And obviously the bodies had been, eaten by jackals and hyenas and carrion birds, raptors. They were in a very bad state. So there's nothing they could do. What they did was, they buried the bodies in 2 different graves. As informed, whatever.
Right at the spot?
Right at the spot, in the middle of the fields. Okay. They buried it, put up a cross. They had a priest, they said the prayers and they came back. This happened something around the 30th, 5th day 1st. On the 5th, Hiroshima happened. On the 8th, Nagasaki happened. The war came to a close. The base was asked to disband. There's no use in the war had finished. What had happened was, such war casualties, happened, it was a very commonplace. Either they were missing or presumed dead or died in action. There were 3 sort of things, Either a soldier or airman went missing. The family was informed he's missing. Some of them, when they knew that, it was, if they lost contact over the sea or in the dip, they knew that that's how they're presumed dead. And the third was dead in action, There were 3 categories. So what had happened was, the family members of these 14 people were informed that your people have presumed dead in the initial 5 days, and then they may have been informed, I'm not very sure, that they are dead. But because the war came to an end, they were in a hurry to abandon the base. In fact, they took away whatever planes were flyworthy. They destroyed the rest on the airfield. They abandoned the base by the 15th. This was a forgotten chapter. But the 14 families, out of 14, 13 were foreigners, only there was one Indian, Mathai. He was an airman, the junior most person. The 13 families, somehow or the other, and they were, I told you, differently placed. Canada, Australia, Netherlands, England, America. they got together by correspondence. That they knew that they collectively died. What happened to them? In what circumstances they died? Where are they buried? They put pressure on the Royal Air Force and the British Defence Ministry that we want to know. So, the records are very meticulously kept. So in 56, a party came down from England, went to the site, unearthed the graves, took out the bones, whatever remnants were there, took them to the Commonwealth War Grave Cemetery in Chennai, and gave them individual burial in 14 different ceremonious manner, and they put up the headstones also, the gravestones, and they informed the next of kin that your people are now deaf. They are there in the Commonwealth War Grave with due honors. That was the end of the story. These 13 people, who wanted to know, they got the answers, how they died, where they died, where are the remains kept now, This was the end of the story. I entered the scene in 2009. Like I told you, I was doing a story on the Commonwealth War Grave Commission in Imphal. Yeah, I was in Imphal doing a story for the Commonwealth War Grave Commission. The Commonwealth War Grave Commission has 14 graves, 14 graveyards all over the country. India is a member of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission because many Indians died. Many of the Indians are buried abroad, in Lyons, in France, in Mesopotamia, in everywhere. Whatever the entire theater of the Second World War, you will find that Indians have been buried there. There was no question of cremation that time. In the Warfield, they were burying it. So when I found out that there's a reference of Amarda Road. So I told you my research, I got this whole story. And when I got the whole story, I felt that, in as much, first of all, the role of Odisha. Nobody knew that Odisha played such an important part and there was such a vital installation in Odisha. Nobody. Not mentioned in Indian war history, not mentioned in the newspapers of the time, not mentioned in any report because I did thorough search. I even searched the newspapers of those days. I searched the World War II history, but in Indian context it was not there. Certainly then I found some literature where other airmen had written. People who had served, when they wrote their memoirs, they wrote it. Somehow my curiosity drove me, who was these 13 people who laid their lives in Odisha, gave up their lives, unsung, unremembered. I started tracing the families. A Herculean task, picking up. I wrote to the Royal Air Force archives, whatever name, the last known address, the last person who took pension in their name, the wives or the children or somebody. And you'll be surprised. In fact, it's a very big, credit to the way the British and the Americans keep the records. I could trace the descendants and the family members of all the 13. It took me more than a year of painstaking research. Okay. Like I was given access to, I was given the passwords to enter the archives, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, in the dead of the night, I could get photographs from the US Air Force archives, who told me that all these photographs are preserved in a salt mine 1 kilometer deep. So after my request is made, somebody has to go and retrieve them, maps. I got so much information. I traced the family members of all these 13 people. In fact, it was very poignant, very sad, very tragic. Nobody had questioned. Many of them thought I was a trickster or a scamster, It took me a lot of time to build confidence. I read them. I know where he died, how he died, where he is buried. I know the history of where he served. So, it took me some time to convince, but yes, I became a part of them. They all got together again. Whatever was left, there were only 2 people. One was Lieutenant Ettlinger's daughter, who was around 80 that time. 70. She hadn't seen her father. Never. Her mother was pregnant when her father died. She told me at the age of 70 that all her life she had searched for her father. And this was the first time somebody wrote. I got the photographs of all the 13. Okay, let me tell you that. From the museum or from the families. Then there was one Cyril Geeson. His brother, younger brother, had died at the age of 22 only. This gentleman was 100 years old. He didn't know how to write email or something. He sent me a handwritten letter which will bring tears to your eyes. At 100, he was 101 years old, but still in his activity, he still had a valid driving license. Okay. He was the oldest driver of England. He wrote that I remember my brother every day. I loved him a lot. And, he thanked me he sent me a toy which was very valuable to him, It was one of the last remnants. He said to me, he said, I have it with me, And he sent me photographs of himself, of his brother, the last known photograph. So that way, many of them, were the grandsons or they were stepchildren and all, like the people who died, their wives married again. And, the children of those people, they had the mother. They told me that, yes, he would have been my stepfather because he died my mother again. I have come to this world because of the crash. It was like, in sort of, it was voyeuristic. I was entering the lives of so many people. But yes, it was good. They all reconnected through me. Many of them had lost connect. They wanted to come. But like I said, most of them were in the 70s and 80s. And then, in fact, one or two of them even booked tickets. But then there were some advisories about it being a left-wing extremism, Maoism and all, So, old people, they didn't come. Anyway, they requested me that now that you've done so much, why don't you hold a memorial service for them? They are forgotten. From 2011 till today, every year on the 26th, we go, we put the photographs on the runway, we hold a all prayer meeting, we sing, we read out verses from the Bible. Initially, we used to also go to the Jaleshwar church and hold a memorial, but they told no, you hold it there. School children and villagers from the nearby, they would all come. And it's like clockwork from the last, and there's a Gandhi hospital there, where Mr. Aditya Patnaik, a Gandhian, he joins us. Okay. And the local administration there. From the last 3 years, the Indian Air Force also flies in somebody. They come in a helicopter from Karikode, which is nearby. We hold the memorial service. Sometimes they have a fly past also. Of course, it is not official, that is a flying range for the Sukhois and all, training mission. So, a small story. The relevance is only that, so many, these people lost their lives on our soil. Protecting, you can say, in our country that time. Okay. Now, the whole mool part was I could get details of all the 13, but the Indian I could not.
You're telling that
yes.
There's another story in itself.
Another story. I tried my level best. I even went to Delhi, went to the US, RAF records. I got very senior people to help me, but it was a dead end. Mathai ke baare mein flight, assistant Mathai was just non-traceable. He was from Kerala. I only knew that much. So I took the help of a few journalists in Kerala whom I know, basically from the Malayalam Manorama. I told my story that I'm looking for this man or his relatives, whoever knows him. And you'll be so pleased to know that 2 of the papers, they carried half-page stories in the Sunday edition. That does anybody know the relatives? And I stuck paid at. I found the relatives. The story was that, after he died, his wife remarried. She married somebody in the services, so she didn't get the widow pension. So the government lost track of her record. But yes, I found out, even they were willing to give me his uniform, which they had still preserved, his medals, which they still preserved, the correspondence. We do it every year. And when we do it, there were a lot of people who joined in. The embassies wanted to join in, but we were not very sure because that airfield is now another DRDO. It's out of bound area, the defense people. We didn't want any problems, The British embassy, they wanted to send the representatives. We didn't encourage it, but yes, we have been doing it. Now, our whole objective has been, when I wrote to all these people, some of them had some, tidbits or some nostalgia or some artifacts of that, When this was disbanded, they had taken it away. You will be surprised. People have sent me uniforms, photographs. One person even sent me a camp chair, folding chair, a folding table, which his father had taken from Amarda. Utensils, I have them all. I wrote to the embassies. The embassies are very happy. We wanted to set up a museum at Amarda and put all this, then write a history of the Amarda Road airstrip. It's a very interesting history. Okay. So, yes, every year we hold it. The MLA comes, sometimes the MP also comes. They promise. Aditya Patnaik is willing to give a very big hall he has a school there. If they want to set up the museum, he's willing to give the infrastructure. All we have to do is, we need government permission and all. It will be so nice that this little known aspect, of airmen of Odisha's role in the Second World War. Like I'll tell you, the Amarda strip was so important that it is also said that had the Enola Gay, the bombing of Nagasaki, the plan B, there's always a plan B.
Yeah.
If that would have not happened, the next flight which would have gone to bomb Hiroshima would have taken off from Amarda Road. Yeah. Even today, when you go there, you get lost. There is 14 kilometers of taxiways passes. The main airstrip is 3.5 kilometers long. It was the longest in Asia. There were underground bunkers.
Is there only one runway? Or?
One runway, only one runway, the main runway. But there were many taxi paths, how to hide the plane. There were underground bunkers. One underground bunker has been sealed since the last 70 years. We have been asking them to open it. For all you know, we may find an old plane there. I don't know, But yes, it is now overgrown. The runway is used for VIP landings at times. It's more than around 600 acres. We told the government that, it's a very nice place to set up a aircraft, this one, maintenance and overhaul facility. Where that will be very right place because there's such a big, large, it's 10 times bigger than the Bhubaneswar airport.
The health of the runway.
The present runway, the main one, with a little bit of repairs, you'll be surprised. It's still intact. You can land a plane there. Planes have landed when BAPs have come, They made a small airstrip. They made a small airport there also with the rooms which are now totally overgrown. And now I presume the DRDO have taken him. The government wanted to bring this airport under the Udan scheme, to operate flights. But that's a very insensible thing because this airport is midway between Baripada and Baleswar. It takes a good 1 hour to reach it. Having a runway midway, and where will flights from there operate to Calcutta? By train, Calcutta is 3 hours. So it's useless just for the political sake if they want to do it. We we want to make them a MRO facility, maintenance, repair and overhaul. All these planes which come, all the civilian flights, need regular maintenance, repair and overhaul. There are periodic checks, like after 5,000 hours, the plane is practically taken to pieces and reassembled. Now all this is happening in Singapore, in Australia. Indian planes fly there, paying foreign exchange for this. We have such a nice facility where we can accommodate hundreds of planes, and it will give a boost to the local economy. It will be I have written to the government time and again. This time they had invited some letter interest. I don't know. But certainly what I would want is, I did write to the government of West Bengal. I wrote to the government of Odisha that we should set up a memorial. 14 people died, irrespective, whichever country they belong to. Hero. They died on our side. They are heroes. You will be surprised. We even got eyewitness who had seen the crash. Yes, he was alive 10 years ago. We even got, not one, we got more. We went to the very spot where the plane had fallen. Very spot in Belda. It took us a lot of difficulty, There were people who still remembered it.
Did you take any interview?
Yes, we took locals, we didn't get a direct person, but we got persons who said their fathers had told us that 2 planes had crashed here. And, for many years they should not go there. They should say there are ghosts and all that. Now, these 14 airmen lie forgotten, I would very much like it. I'm writing a book on it, but there's so much material, like even the emails which I exchange, if I compile them, it will become a book. Okay. So I will write a book definitely. I've got hundreds, not hundreds, I got thousands of photographs.
It's called epistolary novel.
Yeah. So, but it will be very nice if the government of we asked the government of West Bengal set up a memorial, the crash site where the plane had fallen, and the Odisha government can do it in Amarda. Just a small center, something, saying that write down the names of the 14 people. The family of Mathai, they have been calling me to Kerala again and again, but something didn't happen. I'll definitely pay them a visit. They want to give all this stuff to me. So I'll see what happens. But the previous government did promise me, the local MLA, he would always come and tell me, museum bane dava. Then after some stage, I stopped asking for things because, just getting him and not opening the museum would not have it all right. In fact, last time, I had Air Commodore Patnaik. He couldn't go. So he told me that you gift it to the Air Force Museum in Delhi, where they will have a special section on Amarda Road. I'm not averse to that also, but I feel that Odisha deserves to be on the Second World War, maps. Because all over the Northeast, there are so many places. Germans come. Japanese come, Englishmen come to see, and why not we include this also? And this is rich and glorious history. The history of if we write the history of the Amarda Road, I'm telling you, and first of all, nobody knows of it. Okay. So it's very sad, that even after knowing all this from the last 14, this year also we'll go. We go every year. I go, and Dr. Biswajit Mahanti, we go, Aditya Patnaik. You see hundreds of school children, the local police station, they all join. Now the Indian Air Force joins us, and, we hold all prayer meeting. We hold a Bible reading there because all of them are Christians. Even the Indian who died was a Christian. Okay. So I would really wish that the government of Odisha realizes the importance. And this, you won't say it was a big event, but yes, certainly a tragic event which happened on our soil should be commemorated, should be remembered. And I know there are very few people who have memories. Yes, such a crash had happened, But when we even there were many other structures, a few of them still exist. Most of them, after the base was abandoned, the villagers took away even the stones and everything, the wall and everything was broken. They were used for construction. Nothing is left now except for underground bunker and maybe a few old houses. But yes, a very important chapter of Odisha's role in the Second World War, okay, it still remains. And I think, maybe with this podcast, if you go to the right place,
Let us hope for good set.
So well, we are able to, the government really edits and
memorial edifice and the museum, because we have sufficient material, and if we set up the museum we can get a lot more. Maybe we can't get the original, we can get models of the Liberator, we can get photographs, we can write a history of that place, and that can be, it's so beautiful, it's such a, even today when we go there in the night we get lost. There are 14 kilometers of pathways and taxiways, if you really don't have a sense of direction, excepting the main runway, you will get lost. Even in the night, there are foxes, there are bears, sometimes elephants come into that area. It's still a jungle in the middle of nowhere. So such a wonderful place. People don't know about it. It's even a very good picnic site now. People from Baleswar go to learn driving. One straight stretch of 3 kilometers, runway. And it's a very nice one, unobstructed. So Rasgovindapur. It was also called Rasgovindapur airstrip. So we really hope that the government of Odisha and the Ministry of Defence, they set up a museum there and let it be known that it is such an important and vital place, the largest airfield of World War II.
Quite an interview, sir. Thank you.